The newest Netflix documentary, Maternal Instinct. Is this the hardest watch of the year? Yeah. So what's going on, everyone? Julian here at Off the Dome, and today's video is going to be my review and my overall thoughts of the newest Netflix documentary, Maternal Instinct. And I got a lot to say about this film. Is it the hardest watch of the year so far as documentaries are concerned? I think so. I've seen a few of them this year. Some notable ones was Crash, and another one was The Dark Wizard. Those two I highly recommend, especially The Dark Wizard. That was really captivating. But this one hit a little bit different. So initially, I go into this blind. Now, I watch a lot of true crime stuff, but sometimes I forget, details, or, I don't really pay too much attention to faces unless I'm really covering the story. And certain real life tragedies that happen, they're so outlandish and so crazy that sometimes I just wipe them away from my memory because it's too much for me to dig into, if that makes sense. And this is one of those stories. So as I'm watching the documentary, initially they get you with the hook, right? And the first 2 minutes of the film, they sort of give you a little bit of what's going on. And then they reset and start you right back at the beginning. So, I see what's happening. So the first scene, I'm going to spoil this a little bit. It's not really a spoiler because the first 2 minutes of the film, you're going to see what's going on here. So the documentary starts off where you hear the main person we're going to talk about. Her name is Taylor Parker. That's this woman that you see right here. She's on a 911 call, and she's having a discussion because there's a state trooper behind her, and she's about to pull over. And as you're hearing her frantic call, she's saying that she's on her way to the hospital. She's, giving birth to her baby. So as you're hearing this, you see the state trooper's body cam footage, and the state trooper gets out of his car, and as he's approaching, he's talking to her, and she's clearly distraught, but on her lap, you can see there's something on her lap, but the documentary blurred it out. And it became pretty obvious after a few seconds that was a baby, on her lap, lifeless. Now, I wasn't sure if the baby was alive or had passed, but the baby was there with the umbilical cord still attached. And you can see her talking and still patting the baby in the face, trying to, I guess, revive the baby. You can't really see it, but it's there. And that's how the documentary starts. That's the hook. Then it resets you all the way to the beginning, and it tells the story of these two right here. So this is Taylor Parker, and this is her boyfriend, Wade Griffin. Now, as I'm watching this, I'm blind to the story. I don't recognize anything that's going on. I don't know. But as the documentary kept going, it hit me, and I knew exactly what case this was. And it was one of those cases, like I alluded to in the beginning, where it's just too much and I didn't mentally want to even think about it. And that's usually not me. I watch all kind of horrific stuff, history stuff. I'm usually into all of that stuff, true crime, but there are just some things that just hit me a little bit different. And this was one of them. Documentaries like Dear Zachary or The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez, things like that just hit me in a different way that I can't really explain, but they're hard watches for me, and I would imagine for most people. But as I'm going through it and I'm realizing, oh shit, it's this one, I continue to watch, of course, and it was a little bit jarring because initially when they first start showing the two of them getting together, it seems pretty hokey. It almost seems almost unbelievable, right? Even culturally, they're very different from any kind of culture that I grew up in and my culture. So, I see this guy, right? He's, gathering up hogs and, he's selling them or he's feeding his cows, and he's just a real country boy cowboy. And then her, she meets him, and she's similar, where she's willing to get her hands dirty and, feed the animals and, get in the mud and just got this real, country kind of attitude. She wants to take care of her man and, feed him good. And initially you're seeing this and you're like, wow. And then they're getting closer and closer, and turns out she has a lot of money and he doesn't. So the dynamic there immediately, it becomes interesting, and you become more interested in watching it. And then the story continues to unfold, and it just takes all these different twists and turns. And I know documentaries tend to do that, and sometimes not for the better. Sometimes they stretch it out. Sometimes they try to make it almost sound like some fictional, whodunit. And usually that's, I think in poor taste. This documentary was done well. They started the story from beginning to end, mostly through interviews, mostly through the people surrounding all of this, telling their side and their perspective of the story. They did have some footage of, the couple and, just everyone involved. So it told a compelling story, and it did so in a respectful way. Did the documentary cover every single detail if you go and you look up the real story? Not really, but it kept everything that it needed to keep. I would rather an hour-and-a-half documentary like this one is, giving you most of the details you need, than some stretched out 3 or 4 episode thing where they're giving you all these unnecessary details, or giving you details, repeating the details over and over again, which a lot of documentaries tend to do, a lot of filler. This didn't do it. It was pretty straight to the point. As with any true crime documentary, there's going to be a victim or victims. In this particular case, one of the victims' sister had spoken towards the end, and she had some powerful things to say, and that really kind of hit me, and I felt really horrible for that individual. Also, one of the friends of Wade Griffin, also, some of the things that he said also, hit me pretty hard. There were several. Wade's mother also had some crazy things to say. And again, not trying to spoil anything. Again, this isn't fictional. A lot of you who are clicking onto this either saw the documentary or are interested in seeing it may even know the case. So none of the details here that I'm providing will likely be a surprise to anyone. And if you've never seen it, you're going to know these things almost immediately. What you're not going to know is where it ends up and where it's going. And it's kind of shocking the lengths that some people will go to achieve whatever goal, no matter how crazy, no matter how insane it seems. Even to the point where they start to almost believe the lies that they're telling, and the people around them, a lot of them also feed into this. This is a strange thing that you see with people. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you have a family or a friend who they're not doing something that's going to benefit them or benefit someone else, and that they're entering, they're walking to a pit of flames, and everyone around them is like, well, we can't really say anything, we don't want to overstep boundaries, or it's not my place. And everyone just kind of sees them walking towards a path of complete destruction. There's a lot of that happening in this story, and you almost sit back and you're thinking, why isn't anyone doing anything? How is everyone just standing around and watching? And then some of the people that are saying things, you're freaking out because you're thinking, why are they getting so much pushback from everyone else? This is true to life. Almost every crime documentary that I see that involves like a longer drawn out story, you see this kind of thing. Especially family will protect family, friends will protect friends, and often it's to their detriment. Anyway, as far as the documentary itself, like I alluded to a little earlier, very well put together. They put the story together well. They done it in a respectful way, respectful manner. A lot of good footage, a lot of great insight. And I think all in all, it was a very good documentary. So I highly recommend it, like more on a technical level. The only one criticism that I do have is because of the way they have to tell the story. I felt like they could have at the end focused more on the victim. They did have some segments on that person, on that individual, the one I'm talking about, and that was good. I just wish I would have had more on the aftermath of everything. Other than that, it's a minor criticism. I would definitely give this one a high recommend. These kind of documentaries, I don't want to rate with a number. These are real people's lives. I want to kind of respect that. So I'm just most likely going to say, either recommend or not. And I'm recommending it not only because the story is compelling, but because of the documentary's respect for the material and respect for the people involved, and the way they put it together. So this is on Netflix. It's called Maternal Instinct, and I do highly recommend. Anyway, that is going to do it for this video. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. That is by far the easiest thing you can do to support us here at Off the Dome. And it doesn't cost you anything, just a couple of seconds to click like and to click that subscribe button. With all of that said, thank you for joining me. Let me know what you think in the comments. I think this is, worthy to talk about. And until then, I will see you next time. Peace.